Welcome to A Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach with Mark Gellard and Candy Reed, sponsored by the ERT 300. Well, this is exciting because the one and only Mark Gellard is back. He's in the studio, Mark. I've done a few podcasts without you for various reasons because of you traveling. We're on different time zones. It's not been easy to get both of us on the computer at the same time, but this is the big moment. How are you?
Hi, Candy. Everyone, welcome back. I should say sorry for being away for so long. It's been a tough schedule with Australia and the off season, and so it got hard to manage our schedules. But I've seen that you've done some great podcasts that hopefully people have been enjoying listening to while I've been away.
Yeah, we've had some big names, haven't we? Andrea Vavasori, the Italian Davis Cup star, joined us. David McPherson, coach of John Isner and the Bryan brothers, and currently Lee too. And we also had Torben Bells, who's, of course, worked a long time with Angie Kerber, a little bit with Emma Raducanu. You can imagine the short of him speaking about his time with Emma Raducanu was the one that really flew off the shelves on our YouTube channel. You can watch our podcasts, of course, on YouTube and listen to them on Acast and Spotify and Apple. And Mark, we're delighted to say that now we have over 100,000 downloads. I don't think you or I would have imagined that when we started this.
Yeah, no, it's great. We're really, I think we've been doing this is our second season, so really appreciate everyone listening and hopefully still finding some enjoyment and information and being entertained somewhat through our podcasts, our chats, and some really interesting guests I think we've had, and we've got a lot more good ones lined up.
So many good stories. Nick Horvat told a really good one about Donna Vekic when she was coming back from injury and playing essentially a challenger level. And he said she was 6-2, 5-1 up, and 2.5 hours later, she managed to win the match. And he was talking about how that was the dedication from 3 years earlier. And then David McPherson told a brilliant one about the Bryan brothers, how they used to fight non-stop, including in the back of a Wimbledon transport car, when one of them took the other's guitar out of the boot at the end of it, or the trunk, as they say in the United States, of course, and then snapped it essentially over their knee before taking one out upstairs after locking the other out. So it was quite an interesting story. So hopefully our listeners and viewers can go back and watch a few of those. Mark, just tell us briefly, because we haven't spoken too much recently, how your off-season was and how the start of 2025 is.
Off-season was really productive, really good. Obviously, we had a new addition to the team with Agnieszka Radwanska joining us. So that was great to have. I mean, probably, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better tennis mind on the female side. I don't know if she was probably the most physically gifted, but she was the most mentally and intellectually intelligent player on the court that I've seen in some time. And she was a real asset for us to have. And she joined us in Australia for Hobart and Melbourne. So the bad results are mainly because of her, nothing to do with me. And because 2025 so far is, I'm looking forward to 2026 at this rate. We haven't started well. We've come out slow. And we had a good win against Varvara Gracheva in Hobart. And then we lost badly to Maya Joint, who is an excellent player and is going to be a very solid top player for a long time. So young as well. And then we also lost in Brisbane to McCartney. I was going to get this wrong. So McCartney Kessler. I can never remember if it's McCartney or McKenzie, but very good player. Obviously came out of college, so she's played a lot of matches and she's confident right now. She did well in Brisbane, beat us, and maybe won one more match, but then won Hobart the following week. So she's been playing well. And then we had a real disappointing match in the Australian Open. So we just arrived in Abu Dhabi. We've had a lot of travel, so it's been exhausting because we flew back from Melbourne to Miami, which is a long flight. Melbourne to LA to Chicago to Fort Lauderdale. So it was a long flight. And then we had about 10 days home. And then we got to Abu Dhabi about 4 days ago. So we have our singles match tomorrow against Renata Zarazua. So who also trains in South Florida, and we've practiced with her a number of times there. So we could have probably played this match at the local academy instead of coming all the way here.
Lots to pick up on what you just said. I'd love to discuss Aga Radwanska. So how did that come about? Obviously, Magda plays for Aga in the Polish Billie Jean King Cup team. What do you think that Aga adds to your team? And are you picking her brain or is she picking yours? How does it work?
I will correct you. She doesn't have anything to do with Fed Cup or Billie Jean King Cup,
Oh,
but
okay.
her husband, David Selt, he's the Fed Cup, Billie Jean King Cup captain.
Right.
So Magda's had a good relationship with him and with Agnieszka for a long time. And Agnieszka was somewhat of a, a bit of a hero for Magda growing up. And even though they're not that dissimilar in age, Agnieszka was always, someone that Magda looked up to. And after we, things with Ian went a separate way at the end of the year because just from, financially, it's hard to have two coaches around all the time. So I thought about just bringing in a different voice because I've been around now for 7 years with Magda. And so my voice is boring and not always listened to. So I thought having Agnieszka around would be a good way to have a different energy and a different message. And she was great. She was really great. I think she's maybe the results aren't showing it right now, but Magda's learning a lot from her about the way to think about the game. And so, Agnieszka was able to think her way through matches. And she was always two steps ahead or two shots ahead of the opponent. And so when we're watching matches together now, she sees things way before most of the other girls do. She knows where to hit the ball, what to expect, where to receive a ball from. So it's been really good. And I think what Magda's going to have to learn to do is to take this stuff consciously on so that when she plays, hopefully it becomes subconscious because Magda will never be able to be a player that will just think each shot through like Agnieszka would be able to do it on the fly, would know how to change things and read the game. Magda needs to have this. This needs to be a little bit more of a subconscious thing, and it will be done through practicing. So finding ways to practice these things so that when it comes to a match, it's automatic. So it's been really interesting, and Agnieszka's just, great energy, very positive. And to answer the first part of your question, I just called her after Ian went after US Open. Ian, we parted ways, and so I just called her and I said, "Do you have time?" And she said, "Not really. I don't. I've got a husband. I've got a young baby." So. And then she called me back again, or she emailed me or texted me back, I don't remember exactly, and said, "Listen, I can actually do some. I could do a few weeks here and there through the year, if that would be interesting." And that was perfect. It was exactly what we were looking for because, from a financial standpoint, from Magda as well, there's a limit on what she can do. So it just seemed like an amazing opportunity to work with a player that was 2 in the world, Wimbledon finals, and was just one of the best players that I can remember on the women's side for a long time. So the opportunity came, and we definitely were really happy to have her. So so far it's been great, and she'll be joining us in Dubai in about 2 weeks' time.
Okay, so 1,000 levels. I'd imagine the majors she's coming in for, and the big ones.
Yes, exactly, the big ones. I think we're looking at probably 8 weeks a year, something like that, depending on how the schedule works out. But she was excellent to have in Australia, and I know that. Like I said, the results aren't great right now, but it will come, and her work will show at some point. So she's been an excellent addition to the team.
It's funny, isn't it, with coaching? Because sometimes you get that coaching bounce. You see it in football. I'm a big fan of Liverpool, as you know, and obviously the transition from Jurgen Klopp to Arne Slot has just been seamless and tremendous. But it's better than I think anyone could have possibly imagined. And then you look at someone like Ian Hughes. You've mentioned him, who worked with Magda for a while. Including, of course, that wonderful semi-final run at the Australian Open a couple of years ago. And he's joined forces once again with Linda Doncic, and that partnership seems to have started really well. But then there are other coaching relationships that just take a little bit longer. Perhaps the message is more tricky or more confusing, or it takes the player a little bit longer to get and take in what's being told and then put it onto the match court.
Yeah, I think there's two situations that happen there. When, like with Magda's run in Australia, that would undoubtedly not have happened if Ian hadn't been around. I mean, he brought in a new energy in the middle of the year before, and to be honest, when Ian first started, there wasn't a big bump in the results. There really wasn't. But we were doing good things. We were starting to see some things in the practice court. There was a change coming, and you could see that there was some wheels were turning in her head, and you could see good things happening. So I've always been a little bit suspicious of that immediate impact that a coach has when they come in, and it's because it doesn't necessarily tell me how good the new coaching situation or the new coach is. It tells me maybe how bad the last one was. So I think, and that doesn't mean it was a bad coach, but it could have just become a stale relationship. So when I see that new coach come in and there's an immediate pickup in the results, I feel that's more of the honeymoon effect rather than an actual long-term sustainable improvement. So I prefer this way, although I'd love both. I would love a jump in the immediate results. I think when you see players having that immediate result, it's more just because they're sort of freed from their past situation rather than because of the positives from the new one. But that's just how I see it. But I think with Agnieszka's work, it's going to take a little bit more time because she's not changing anything, but she's adding a few things that take some work, and they're not necessarily easy things to do. Otherwise, we'd already do them. So,
really good point.
There'll be an upturn in the results soon, I hope.
Slow and steady, Ian, I think, ultimately wins the race, doesn't it?
Exactly. But Ian, when like I said, when Ian was with us, he had a huge impact on Magda and me, and now he's working with Belinda Bencic, and she's coming back strong already. So it seems like they're having some immediate success there. Obviously, she's a top player, right? So she's got the skills and the game, but it seems like he's immediately having a good impact on that situation as well.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have that chemistry, don't you? I'd love to know from you when you set up the schedule, because obviously you've done the Australian swing. Now you're in Abu Dhabi, and I presume you're going to play the 2000. So you've got Doha and Dubai coming next. How many months in advance do you plan things for Magda?
Luckily, when you're this ranking or this kind of ranking in the top 100, you have a pretty good idea of the schedule and what it's going to be. It's not going to change year to year. They're not suddenly going to move the Australian Open to February or Wimbledon to March. So roughly. And so you're waiting for the WTA to release their official calendar on the player zone, where players have access to all that information. And then we'll sit down, and this will be usually November-ish time, where you'll start having an idea of the schedule and you start entering tournaments. For main draw, you have to be entered 6 weeks in advance, and for qualifying, it's 3 weeks in advance, I believe. So you have to check your ranking. And the advantage of being ranked where she's at right now, I think around 35, somewhere around that, is that you have a good idea where you're going to be in main draw, so you can plan accordingly. But it's a tricky part. I knew that this year I didn't love our start last year in 2024. We started slow, and we really didn't get playing good till end of March, April. And I wanted to change things this year a little bit. And I have changed things a little bit, and it's had absolutely no effect at all. So even the best laid plans don't work out sometimes. But we took off. Instead of playing Linz or Singapore the week after Australian Open final, we went home to Florida, and we've come here and we've added in what was supposed to be the warm-up tournament for Indian Wells in San Diego, but that's now been moved to Merida in Mexico. So we're going to go. We've took one out that week after Australia and have added one in somewhere later. But it all depends. Of course, you look at someone like Madison Keys, who had a great run there in Australia. Her schedule now will be completely different. She may not be able to enter some of the 250 she planned because of her ranking. She's not going to want to play these smaller events now because she doesn't need to. She's going to need time to rest. So how you do each week is, and you're going to have to adapt accordingly. If we have another couple of bad losses here in this swing, we're going to have to look for some more matches elsewhere, and that's when you start needing wild cards and having to think a little bit more in advance about what you want to do. So it's a complicated thing, and it's where the younger players and the players that are just starting out on the tour need a lot of help, because so often the difference between being ranked 250 and 450 or 500 or 100 and 220 is just how well you've scheduled. You've just maybe not picked the right tournaments, and that's where you hope a coach can find a little bit of give you a little bit of a competitive advantage.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, and hopefully people are listening to that. So get some experienced coaches on board as well, just to mentor you. Going back to Madison Keys, because you brought her up, just give us your thoughts anyway on her Australian Open triumph. I have to say, I'm floating my own boat here, but when she won Adelaide, the international there, and Jessie Pegula said she'd never in the final played anyone who'd hit the ball as hard, I actually put Madison Keys, and I said this out loud in commentary, as one of my favourites to win the title, along with Aryna Sabalenka. The match that Keys played against Iga Swiatek at the Australian Open was just unbelievable. We have, and I think I've shown you our bunker spot at the Australian Open where we do commentary from. It's essentially level with the players on Rod Laver Arena. So I saw that match ball by ball, spin by spin, the power they were hitting with, the accuracy. It was just mind-blowing to see something that good from that close up. But I'd love to know your thoughts on Madison Keys winning her first major.
Actually, Ian, I was talking to him during Adelaide, and he told me Madison's playing really well, and she's using a new racket now. She switched to the Yonex Evo. I don't know, maybe she got a better model than us because our brand doesn't give us that amount of power. But he told me she was looking good, and she's always a dangerous player, right? She's just, it's whether or not she can put it all together. When you have a game like that, I think there's she's, you know, those players are always dangerous. You know, that this is tennis now in this generation is all about power and speed, and players like Agnieszka, that game is a little bit I don't want to say dead, but it's a dying rare breed of game right now. The Ash Bartys, the Agnieszka Radwanskas, those kinds of players, it's a tough way to play, because I think that players like and this is not in any way a slight, but you know, players like Sabalenka and Madison, their mental toughness is different, and it's easier a little bit in a way. And I don't mean easy that it's easier. I just mean you look at the players like a Magda or someone like this. There's not many free points, right? So if you're having a bad day, you have to play every point, you know, with so much intensity. And this is a long year, and as you get older, it's harder. And so you look at the game now, and the top players are, there's a sort of a physical body type of Madison Keys, Aryna Sabalenka, Rybakina, you know, Haddad Maya. These girls are just strong, big hitting players. You know, so, and even Jessica Pegula isn't big, but she hits a big ball. She's got great timing. So I think that I thought it was unbelievable how she played. I saw the match against Iga. I thought it was great tennis. And she just found a way to put it all together. And I think that there's not enough credit probably going to Bjorn.
Yes, I'd love to ask you about him next.
Well, because he was a player, and obviously now he's married to Madison. I think if that was a coach, you know, in quotes, sort of, you know, coaching her, he would have had a lot more credit, because I think since he's been with her, she's complete. This goes back. We played her in Strasbourg last year, and she was on fire. I mean, she just was running through the draws every week. And it was like, is she going to win a major? And then, you know, when you have that game, you're always dangerous. And, you know, things just seem to work out. You know, she took out Iga, you know, and she was the best player in that tournament. She deserves it. She's been around for a very long time. And I personally didn't see that one coming. So you were better than me picking that one.
Well, only because I'd had the advantage of watching her throughout the Adelaide International. And I think I actually did Eastbourne 2023 when her and Bjorn started working together, because, of course, he was playing on the men's side. But I just love listening to him, because during the Adelaide International, the coaches were all mic'd up, and he was just giving her very simple phrases, just encouragement, nothing too crazy. He didn't get too high or too low, and she seems to react really positively. I was so impressed by him, because not every good tennis player becomes a great coach, do they? It takes a lot. So he obviously just has the right way about him.
Yeah, I think he gives her a lot of confidence. And I remember watching that match against Iga, and I think she was down in that third set tiebreak, that 10-point tiebreak. She was down 4-2,
down the whole time until 8 points all.
Yes, exactly. And that to me was really impressive, because I think a lot of players there, it was a couple of tough points there to go down 4-2. And it just felt like, okay, here we go. Iga's going to, you know, do what world number ones do, right? They find a way to win that match. And she just came up with some great shots and stayed really committed to her style of play, which I liked.
Yeah.
I like that
Yeah,
a
she
lot.
had a thumping forehand, I think, to win the match. I mean, it was so gutsy because I just know how I would have felt. And my arm would have been so tight, I wouldn't have been able to hit through the ball. And she just absolutely thwacked her forehand. Incredible.
It's interesting because I always found that there's two kinds of nerves. There's two different people, I should say. That there's people that get really nervous. And I used to play. If I got nervous, the ball didn't leave the racket. It just wouldn't make it to the service line, right? It
Yeah.
got really slow. And then there's the other nervous player that just wants the point over because they're so nervous, so they hit as hard as they can. And there's those two distinct kinds of personalities, and if you watch a Rybakina or someone like this, when they get nervous, they go bigger and they want the
Yeah.
point over. And then there's the other players that want to not miss. So it's interesting to see which category each player falls into. And Madison's definitely, the first one there where she hits a bigger ball. But credit to her. She's been around. She's been a top 10 player for a while, top 20 player, and you'd have to say she was a deserving winner.
Yeah, she turned 30 this month. So it's just lovely to see that the game has sort of changed a bit and that Mira Andreeva is now the only teenager ranked in the world's top 100. And you're starting to get players in their 30s now winning major titles. So I think that bodes really well for the length of tennis, the longevity that this sport has because it's so physically demanding. Right, let's talk a little bit about Elena Rybakina because she's there in Abu Dhabi, if you're happy to cover this. It's a strange story, isn't it? Because she turned up at the Australian Open with Goran Ivanisevic, and then she was making references to her old coach, we thought, Stefano Vukov, who's currently suspended by the WTA Tour. Goran didn't seem to know anything about Vukov being a part of her team still, and she's since split ways with Goran and now brought in David Sanguinetti, who's in Abu Dhabi with her. But Stefano Vukov seems to be the head coach still. What is going on, Mark? Do you have any insider information?
I have absolutely no scoop on this at all. I know Stefano; he's always been really pleasant with me. But whatever happens behind closed doors, none of us know. He's been with her a long time. They actually came to China when he first started working with her when we were still training there. This probably back in 20. Do you know when she started with him? 18, 19, something like
It's
that.
been a while. Yeah, probably around there.
Something around there, and they've been together a long time. So it's you never want to see somebody lose their job if he has, or Goran, but it was never going to work once she sort of said that Stefano was going to stay involved and Goran. I don't see that working. I think that's a different dynamic. People might say, well, you and Magda had Ian as well, or you and Magda have Agnieszka, but I think it's a different situation. And I think that, it has to be, there's certain, it's just a different dynamic I felt, and I didn't feel that it was done the right way. But all I know is what people are writing and, the same as everyone else is seeing on the internet. So I think that the WTA there's still some kind of, I don't know, investigation pending or something about what's going to happen. But it seems to me that he's still in the picture and she still wants him around. I think she's backtracked a bit on what she said initially. It seemed not, maybe she hasn't said it expressly, but she seems to have sort of now be more on defending him. So if that's what she wants, who are we to stop her? I don't know. It's a tricky one for the WTA. I mean, you see this as well with the younger players. Where does if you have a junior player, where does the parenting skills have to end if you see abuse? Some parents might call it tough love, or that's how I raise my kids. And okay, where is that no longer acceptable? So it's a really tricky. And what's acceptable to you or I in England is very different to what happens in China or Asia or different parts of the world. So it's a tricky situation. I don't really have any scoop. I'm sorry. It's a very hush at the moment. So.
No, it's a good point, though. And I think it has to come down. She seems like a reasonably educated young woman, doesn't she, Elena Rybakina? And probably, she needs to have the final say on this. If all is going well, then she knows better than others if there's abuse or bad behavior or anything like that. And it seems everything coming out of her mind is no.
She's not a child. She's an adult. She can make her decisions. I do think, though, nothing related to this, but I think that the WTA should have had a system in place where you have to have a certification and a license. So you can be a certified coach. Let's say Coco Gauff's dad wants to be her coach. That's fine. But he has to have the certification, which allows him to get on court on the WTA facilities with her, and then a license that allows him to be part of the event, be in the lounge and in the restaurants and all of that, to raise the standards of coaching and to kind of keep some accountability. I think they need to do a better job with that.
Well, that's something that Vlado Platonic was talking about, wasn't it? He's the coach of Lulu Sun, and he came on the podcast a few months ago and was talking about that. And you're right, because in England, in the UK, we all have to have coaching certifications. We have to do so many hours a year. We have to have first aid and be accredited and be insured. And there's a lot that goes into it. You can't just turn up and start coaching. But on the WTA tour, it seems that you can.
Yeah, the problem with tennis is this is an industry. It's a really unregulated industry. If you look at the US, for example, it's a huge market. But the USTA does not have their own, as a governing body, they don't have a certification. They outsource the certifications to PTR or USPTA, which just makes a mockery of the whole thing. I mean, these two organizations are really, they're designed for a club coach at best. And these certifications, I went and became a PTR certified coach and a USPTA. I'm going to get that right, or USPTA.
Yeah, that's
coach.
Right.
I did that in 2 days, and I got the same level of certification as a couple of other people that were on the course that weekend that had only started playing tennis 6 months ago. So we're both tennis coaches. So it's a really poor system, and most people I speak to only have it because of the insurance that it provides. It provides very little in terms of improving a coach's knowledge, practical information. It's whereas if you look in England or in Tennis Australia and some of these other countries, Italy, France, they have much more streamlined systems that kind of mandatory. I think in certain countries there in Europe, you have to have gone through a certain amount of schooling to get become a certified coach. So it's very poorly governed industry in general.
Speaking of coaching, I did a symposium, I guess it was, with Rafa Nadal in Saudi Arabia, because he's a Saudi tennis ambassador. And I got to sit down with him for about 30 minutes and chat all things coaching and how his career went from beginning essentially to retirement. And there were so many Italian coaches at this coaching conference in Saudi, and they were all so willing to engage. I see the Italian coaches on the tour, on the women's tour, and they're all helping each other out. They're all so kind and nice and fun. And it just seems like Italian tennis have just got it right. Do you see
100%,
that?
100%. They've done a great job, and it took time because they had a long time where they didn't have a lot going on, and they really figured out what they needed to do. And it's a credit to them. We've had several guests on here now from Italy talking about the fact that they have a tennis channel 24/7 showing challenger matches, not the tennis channel in America that shows pickleball and paddle most of the day. The culture there is really set up now for success in tennis, and kids are watching TV wanting to be tennis players. So I think they've done a great job there, and it's something that if I was in charge of the American Federation or the English Federation, I'd be going over there and seeing what are they doing well.
Correct.
It's really impressive what they've done, and like you said, even on the WTA side, the Italian girls are often together practicing, eating. The coaches are together. Yeah. There's a real team feeling that if you get better, it helps me get better, rather than some other countries where there's a little bit of a feeling of not wanting to help your opponent or competition get better as well. So, yeah.
Well, I think we need to start a petition. We need more free-to-air tennis on television in every single country. Italy have done it. Let's get it done. The UK, we don't have much. And the United States, it sounds like there's not much either. So that's something we can certainly work on. Now, last subject, and I know you didn't know much about this because we discussed this before we came on air, but Magda, your player, Magda Linette, has been profiled in K-Mag magazine in Poland. And it's not just a tennis magazine, it's more of a cultural magazine. And there's some fascinating pictures of her. It's a really good article by Magda, who's obviously got so much going on other than just tennis. And I wondered how much stuff like this a lot of the tennis players do, because there's not a huge amount of time in the day. That I suppose that's wrong to say. There is a lot of time in the day for tennis players. There's a lot of hanging around, but Magda seems to be doing other things in her time as opposed to just sitting and watching and loading on Instagram.
Yeah, I know she has a lot of interest outside of tennis. She's quite into this following fashion, and I do believe, you can't quote me exactly, but she was like Poland's second or third most influential female athlete. So she's got a good engagement on Instagram and things like that. And she's obviously now has the Lynette Foundation, which is she's really into with trying to raise money for kids in Poland to play sports, not just tennis, all sports, and then gain an education. So she's putting a lot of time into that. So obviously, the more she does in the media, it helps the foundation grow. And we will be having another Kids Day and coaching conference this year in Poland in July. So if anyone interested, please contact us. But that will be sometime in July. But yeah, she does a lot of things. She loves doing photo shoots and just kind of going out onto shows and talking about her life and how she can help other people. She's very philanthropic, I would say, and likes to help other people learn. And she does a lot of stuff helping kids and other players where she can. And I think she's really does a nice job of that. She's definitely not somebody that's going to come back and watch 4 hours of tennis on TV, as much as I would love her to do it. She'd much rather go do some foundation work or some events outside of tennis. I think she's not. I think some players like to be. I would imagine someone like Yannick Sinner likes to sit and watch and be around tennis all the time, or as much as possible. As a guy, I think it's different as well. But I think a lot of the females, especially, they like to enjoy things outside of tennis to take away that constant thinking about it. So she has a lot of endeavors, and I think she has Instagram for people that are interested. Is Magda Lynette, her foundation, Lynette Foundation. So she's always trying to find new opportunities there to help promote that and help raise money for the kids in Poland. And and especially and also she's a little bit crazy with cats. She's a bit of a crazy cat. I mean, she's getting out of control, this cat thing. I mean,
I need to know more about this, because I'm a bit of a Taylor Swiftie fan. I don't know if you know that. And obviously Taylor loves her cats. So I didn't know Magda's obsession with cats.
No, she found these ragdoll cats. I don't know if you've heard of these. Beautiful. Nice cats. And she has she's a little bit like a crazy cat lady already at the age of 32. So
has she got some?
So she has one, but it's in Poland. Her mum is looking after it, but she also bought her mum one and her sister one. So she went and got 3. So she's a bit crazy about that. And she keeps trying to ask me if we can bring one on the road with us. And I'm like, there's no way I'm walking around with a cat on a leash. I mean, there's no chance. I've already got enough problems to deal with. So she's.
If you watch, I think it's Miss Americana on Netflix with Taylor Swift, she's got a cat backpack. It's sort of quite spacey. It's got a big round in the back and obviously air holes, and the cat travels around on the private jet in her backpack. I used to take my rabbits to tennis tournaments when I was younger. Anybody who knows me will remember me for taking my rabbit Connor to all my tennis events. It's true.
We actually are a little bit, we're weird in general, but you can often find us at tournaments in the town at the local dog park.
Nice.
And we're the weirdos that are at the dog park, but we don't have a dog. So we're just looking at everyone else's dog, and we can see them looking at us thinking, why are you here? But yeah, we're big animal people. So whenever there's tournaments that have dogs or cats or anything like that on site, we're always happy. So
I think that's so sensible. I had a long chat with John Williams, coach of Taylor Townsend, who's also been on the podcast at the Australian Open. And I was asking him why his wife didn't travel. And he said, well, we've got a dog. She's got to be home. And I completely understand that, because my husband looks after the dog and the cat. We at one point did have 4 cats, but they weren't ragdolls. So I suppose I'm a bit of a crazy cat woman as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
They're everywhere, Mark.
It seems to be something about tennis, but making all these crazy cat people. But it's yeah, we do like the animals, so we're often found at. She actually also she does when we're in Boca. She often visits the Humane Society there and helps with volunteering or donations and
that's
things
lovely.
like that. She's very nice like that. So that's the
And
good
one
side
day
of it. I've too many things I've said nice about her today, so let's move on to something else.
Well, let's end the podcast there, and Magda, I'm sure, will be very, very delighted. She can come on and just rip you to shreds next time.
She will, no doubt. No
All right,
doubt.
thanks, Mark. Good luck in Abu Dhabi. Hope it goes well. And then just remind us of the next schedule. So it's Doha, Dubai, and then
Doha, Dubai, and then we are currently scheduled to play in Merida, which is a 250 in Mexico.
yeah,
The week before Indian Wells, and then it's obviously Indian Wells, Miami, and then after that, I don't know, but typically it goes Charleston, Madrid, Rome. So
yes.
we're waiting for that part of the schedule to be fully out and know what we're doing yet. So,
Right.
but that's our tentative schedule.
Good. And I get to commentate on Magda's match tomorrow against Zarazua. So I'm looking forward to that because I haven't commentated on her match for well over a year.
Okay. Well,
So I'll be on the ADCB court, which they're playing on in Abu Dhabi.
Yes, that's right.
Quite a unique name.
Great facility and really well-run tournament.
Oh, that's
highly
good to
recommend
hear.
anyone to come and visit these tournaments. If you like tennis, you can get really close up to the action here. The hotels and surroundings are beautiful. The weather's great. It's very well organized. So definitely try and get here if you can.
The tennis tour, of course, follows the sun, doesn't it? And all the tennis players always stay in the nicest hotels, and the facilities are just top notch. I think I feel very privileged when I get to go out on tour, and I'm sure you do as well, Mark, especially when you win.
Especially when we win. Any hotel is good when we win.
Exactly. Yes. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, Mark, and catch you on the next one. We'll have more great guests on Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. Of course, you can get in touch with Mark and I. Please like, subscribe, and share. And you can, of course, check out at DOA PTC or visit www.firststriketennis.com. We've got lots of great interviews planned for 2025. And again, thank you so much if you downloaded our podcast. We're so delighted to have more than 100,000 downloads now. We're also on YouTube, so you can watch as well as listen. And we're grateful for everyone's attention. And keep those questions coming if you have any suggestions as well on podcast hosts. We'd love to hear those as well. Mark, anything
Thanks
to add?
very much, everyone. No, thanks for listening, and we'll be back with some great guests very soon.
Perfect.
Thank you.